Can you imagine these words? Those were the last words my father said to me before he shoved me into an October storm and locked the door. Get out of my house. I don't need a sick daughter. I was 15. No coat. No phone. No money. Just a school backpack with algebra homework and rain already soaking through my sneakers. 3 hours later, the police called him. When he heard what they said, his face went as white as chalk. By then it was far too late. I'm sure walls. I'm 28 now, sitting in my Boston apartment, watching rain streak down the glass. There's a letter on my kitchen table, written in shaky pen on cheap nursing home stationery. After 13 years of silence, my father wants to see me. Says he's dying. Says he's sorry. Rain always drags me back to that night. October 14, 2011. I remember coming home from school like it was any other Tuesday. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Brain still humming with the algebra test I just aced. I was thinking about dinner, homework, and the band poster I planned to buy with my birthday money. Ordinary 15-year-old problems. I had no idea that in under 2 hours I'd be walking alone through a freezing storm, wondering if I'd live to see morning. The second I stepped through the front door, I felt it. Something was off. My father stood in the living room like a volcano about to erupt. His face was raw meat red, hands trembling. He gripped a wad of cash in one fist and empty pill bottles in the other. Karen stood just behind him. She was 19 then, 4 years older than me. On her face, concern, worry, heartbreak, the perfect portrait of the devoted older sister devastated by what she discovered about her baby sibling. But I caught her eyes. For a split second the mask slipped. There it was. Satisfaction. Our stepmother Jolene hovered in the kitchen doorway, arms folded, lips tight. Saying nothing. Silence was her specialty. Saying nothing while bad things unfolded right in front of her. My father didn't even let me put my backpack down. He started screaming like I'd torched the house. He said I'd been stealing from his wallet for months. Said I was buying pills, hiding them in my room. Said Karen had found proof. Cash in my dresser, pill bottles in my closet, text messages to drug dealers. I tried to answer. Tried to say I'd never taken $1 from him, never seen those pills, didn't know what he was talking about. The words died in my throat. Because I realized something worse than anything he was yelling. He wasn't listening. His mind was already made up. Karen had spent the whole day poisoning him with her version of reality. She stood there looking crushed, telling him she tried so hard to help me, tried to get me to stop. That she hadn't wanted to say anything, but she just couldn't watch her little sister destroy herself anymore. It was an Oscar-level performance. And my father believed every line like it was scripture. He grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise and dragged me toward the door. My backpack lay where I dropped it. He snatched it up and hurled it into my chest so hard I stumbled. Then he opened the door. Rain sheeted down. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The temperature had fallen 15 degrees since morning. He looked me dead in the eyes and said it again. Get out of my house. I don't need a sick daughter. He shoved me onto the porch. The door slammed. The deadbolt clicked. Just like that, at 15 I was homeless. I stood there on the porch for maybe 5 minutes, motionless. Not from cold, though that was coming, but from pure shock. I kept waiting for the bolt to slide back, for someone to shout that it was all a mistake. No one came. My phone sat on my bedroom desk. I hadn't been allowed to grab anything except what I already held. Inside my backpack, textbooks, a half-eaten granola bar, and nothing remotely useful for surviving a night outside. No jacket. No money. No way to call for help. It was 2011. Payphones still existed somewhere, but who carried quarters? Not a 15-year-old who blew her allowance on band posters. Straight A student, zero survival skills. So I started walking. I didn't really decide where to go. My body just turned and headed toward the only safe place I knew. My grandmother Dorothy's house, 7 miles away. My mom's mom. The one person who always looked at me like I mattered. 7 miles isn't much in a car. On foot, in freezing rain, in thin canvas sneakers with no coat, it could have been 700. Route 9 stretched ahead, dark and slick. Cars hissed past, spraying dirty water, no one slowing down. I was just a shadow on the shoulder, something no one wanted to look at too closely. After the first mile, my clothes were soaked to the skin. After the second, I couldn't feel my fingers. After the third, my teeth rattled so hard I thought they'd crack. But I kept going. What else was there? Crawl back and beg my father to believe me? He'd already chosen his story. Forward was the only option. One numb step at a time. Hypothermia is sneaky. You don't realize it's happening until you're nearly gone. Your body shuts down in small pieces. Your brain fogs. Sitting down for just a minute starts to sound like the best idea you've ever had. I made it 4 miles. Up ahead, a mailbox. I remember thinking I'd lean on it for a second, catch my breath, then keep going. Grandma's house was only 3 miles farther. I could do that. My knees buckled before I reached it. The gravel rushed up. Then nothing. Like someone snapped off the power mid-scene. 3 hours after throwing his daughter into a storm, my father's phone rang. The voice on the other end was cool and professional. Officer Daniels, County Police. There had been an incident. His 15-year-old daughter had been found unconscious on Route 9 with hypothermia. She was en route to County General Hospital. And one more thing, sir. Child Protective Services had been notified. A caseworker was already at the hospital. They had questions about why a minor was walking alone in a dangerous storm with no coat and no phone. He needed to come in and bring whatever evidence he had. His face, they later told me, turned the color of plaster. Karen was beside him when he got that call. For the first time, her perfect mask slipped. Just for a heartbeat, but it was enough. Because here's what changed everything that night. The woman who found me on that roadside wasn't some random driver. Her name was Gloria Hensley. She'd spent 35 years working for Child Protective Services. She'd seen every form of abuse, every brand of neglect, every lie parents tell about their kids. So when her headlights swept over a teenage girl lying in the rain with no coat, no phone, and no one searching for her, she knew exactly what she was looking at. And she was not about to ignore it. My father thought he was taking out the trash that night. Getting rid of a problem, cutting out the bad apple. Protecting his family from a sick daughter who didn't deserve his love. What he really did was light a fuse. He had no idea what was about to blow up. Before I explain how, you need context. You need to know why my sister did what she did, and how long the ground had been cracking under our feet. My mother, Patricia, died in 2006. Cancer. I was 10. Karen was 14. One day we had a mom who made Sunday pancakes and braided my hair for school pictures. The next, we were standing beside a hospital bed, listening to machines slow down and then go silent. My father didn't cope. Didn't cope is generous. He collapsed inward like a dying star. He went to work, came home, sank into his recliner, stared at nothing. The house could have burned down and I'm not sure he'd have noticed. So Karen stepped in. At 14, she became the one who made dinner, signed permission slips, got me to school. She became the responsible one, the grown-up, the daughter my father leaned on. He praised her constantly. What would I do without you, Karen? You're so mature, Karen. You're the glue holding this family together, Karen. He never asked how she was handling our mother's death. He just expected her to handle everything else. My father had 2 blind spots. His eldest daughter and his beloved recliner. Both were worn out, sagging, and long past due for replacement, and he couldn't see it. Men in their recliners. What he didn't see, what he refused to see, was what happened when he wasn't looking. Karen wasn't just stepping up. She was building a kingdom. And in her kingdom, I was the peasant who needed to be kept in her place. It started small. Homework assignments that vanished the night before they were due. Permission slips that never made it to teachers. My favorite shirts accidentally shrunk in the wash. Oops, must have been a mistake. Birthday party invitations I handed to Karen to mail that my friends never got. Messages from classmates that mysteriously didn't come through. Somewhere a reputation was being built brick by brick, and I didn't even know I was in the blueprint. Karen visited my teachers with a sorrowful, worried expression and told them I was struggling after Mom's death. That I was acting out at home. That they should be patient with me because I was going through such a hard time. She painted a portrait of a troubled child. Everyone believed her. She was so mature, so responsible, so caring. I tried to tell my father once. Sat him down and explained that Karen was sabotaging me, lying to people, that something was wrong. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. You're just jealous of your sister, he said. She's trying to help this family. You should be grateful. After that, I learned the rules. Stay small. Stay quiet. Survive until you can get out. 2 years after my mom died, my father remarried. Jolene was pleasant enough at first. She smiled a lot, made casseroles, and tried hard to fit in. Karen immediately started calling her mom. Strategic, I think. A way to lock in her role as the good daughter, the loyal one. I couldn't do it. I couldn't call a stranger mom. When my real mother had been dead only 2 years. It wasn't about Jolene personally. It was about my heart not being ready. I paid for that quiet rebellion. From then on, Jolene treated me like a guest boarding in her house. She and Karen formed their own private club. I was not a member. By the time I was 15, the lines were bright and sharp. Karen. The golden child, the favorite, incapable of wrongdoing. Me, the problem, the disappointment, the girl who just couldn't get it together. Then there was the money. Before she died, my mother set up trust funds for both of us. $45,000 each, available when we turned 18. Not a fortune, but a solid start. A safety net from a mom who knew she wouldn't be there to help us launch. Karen turned 18 in 2009 and got her share right away. It evaporated in 11 months. A flashy sports car. Designer clothes. Expensive gifts for her boyfriend Trent Barlow. A smooth talker with big ideas and zero legitimate income. By the time I got kicked out 2 years later, Karen was broke. The sports car still existed, the money didn't. And Trent was always chasing his next big opportunity. His next sure thing investment, the deal that would finally make them rich. My $45,000 was still sitting there, locked up until 2014 when I turned 18. Unless something happened to me first. Mom's trust had a clause she thought would protect us. If either daughter was declared legally incompetent or institutionalized before 21, her share would be managed by a court-appointed family guardian until she recovered. Karen and Trent did the math. If I was institutionalized for substance abuse, say because Dad found drugs, cash, and proof of dealing in my room, someone would have to manage my trust. Someone responsible. Someone trustworthy. Someone like a concerned older sister who only wanted the best for me. $45,000. That was the price tag on my head. The week before everything exploded, Karen put the plan into motion. Small withdrawals from my father's account on his ATM card. She knew his PIN, she handled the bills. Trent's empty prescription bottles saved up. A prepaid burner phone bought at a nearby convenience store, loaded with fake text messages. On the morning of October 14th, while I ate breakfast and thought about my algebra test, Karen slipped into my bedroom and planted everything. Cash in my dresser. Pill bottles in my closet. A slip of paper with the burner number, my supposed dealer. Then she went to our father, eyes brimming, voice breaking, and told him his youngest daughter had a terrible secret. Why wouldn't he believe her? For 9 years, Karen had been the flawless daughter who never lied. For 9 years, I'd been cast as the troubled one before I even knew what part one was supposed to be playing. By the time I walked in from school that afternoon, my trial was over. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, exile. That's how I ended up on Route 9 in the October rain, walking toward my grandmother's house like it was the last light left. But Karen miscalculated. She never factored in Gloria Hensley. I don't remember collapsing. Just the feel of gravel scraping my palms and then blackout. What I do remember is waking up. Fluorescent lights. The sharp tang of antiseptic and industrial floor cleaner. A scratchy hospital blanket tucked around me like I was something fragile. Something worth protecting. I hadn't felt that way in years. A woman sat beside my bed. Silver hair pulled into a neat bun. Reading glasses low on her nose. A paperback closed in her lap. She looked like the grandmother who always has cookies and tissues in her purse. Her eyes, though, were sharp. Nothing missed them. Her name was Gloria Hensley, 67. Retired after 35 years at Child Protective Services. She'd seen every brand of cruelty adults inflict on kids. On that cold October night, driving home from her book club, her headlights had caught something on the shoulder of Route 9. A teenage girl, drenched and unconscious. She pulled over so hard her tires screamed. There was an emergency blanket in her trunk, old habit from her CPS days. She wrapped me in it, called 911, stayed by my side until the ambulance came. Then she followed it to County General. When I woke up 4 hours later, she was still there. She pressed a paper cup into my hands. Hospital coffee, the kind that tastes like regret brewed at 200 degrees. This is terrible, she said. But it's hot. I actually laughed. For the first time in hours, maybe days. She smiled back, small but knowing. There she is, she said. Now tell me why a 15-year-old was walking down Route 9 in a storm with no coat and no phone. So I told her. I told her everything. The accusations. The planted evidence. The years of Karen's quiet sabotage. Things I'd never said out loud because no one had ever really listened. Gloria listened. She nodded now and then. She didn't interrupt. She didn't question. When I finished, she sat silent for a moment. Then she said 7 words that changed my life. I believe you. And I'll help prove it. While I'd been unconscious, the machinery had already started grinding. The hospital had called the police. Standard procedure when a minor comes in from a dangerous situation. The police had called my father. I would have paid good money to see his expression. Mr. Walls, Officer Daniels had said. Your 15-year-old daughter was found unconscious on Route 9. She reports that you expelled her from your home during a storm. She's at County General with hypothermia. Child Protective Services has been notified. Caseworker is on site. We need you to come in and bring whatever evidence you have. My father and Karen showed up around 10:15 p.m. By then I was awake, sitting up in bed. Gloria at my side. A CPS caseworker named Maria Santos. A uniformed officer standing by the door. Not the audience my father had in mind. He looked rattled. Not guilty yet, just annoyed and bewildered. Like this was an unfortunate misunderstanding wrecking his evening. Karen hung back. For the first time in my life, she looked unsettled. The smug curl to her mouth I'd seen when the door slammed behind me was gone. They expected a scared, apologetic girl ready to confess and beg for forgiveness. Instead, they walked into a room full of professionals asking pointed questions about why a minor had been on the roadside in dangerous weather with no coat, no phone, and no one tracking her down. The power dynamic had flipped. Karen felt it. She tried her usual script. Concerned older sister, worried about her troubled sibling. We just want what's best. We're at our wits' end. Maria Santos wasn't buying it. 30 years in social work had tuned her radar for lies. Karen said it buzzing. And then my grandmother arrived. Dorothy Reeves was 67, 5'2", and powered entirely by resolve. She was also not in the mood. My mother had been her only child. I was her only grandchild. She had never trusted my father or his new wife. She lived 40 minutes from the hospital and made it in 25. I heard her before I saw her. The rapid click of sensible heels coming down the corridor. Tempo set firmly to battle. She swept into my room like a silver-haired storm and planted herself between me and my father. That's my granddaughter, she announced. What has this fool done now? My father started talking about the theft, the pills, the evidence. Dorothy listened for maybe 30 seconds, then raised a hand. Raymond, she said. I've known you 15 years. You've never been the sharpest tool in the shed, but this might be your crowning achievement. She jabbed a finger toward the pill bottles and cash. You threw a child into a storm based on what? Pills that popped up out of nowhere? Cash that magically appeared? Did you even ask her what happened? He opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. That's what I thought, she said. Here's what people never understood about my grandmother. She didn't just love me. She went to war for me. That night, while I lay exhausted and half-frozen in a hospital bed, Dorothy picked up the phone and started swinging. She demanded an emergency custody hearing. Immediately. It was almost midnight, she didn't care. She called in a favor from a family court judge whose wife she'd served alongside on the PTA for 15 years. The hospital social worker laid out the facts. A minor expelled into dangerous weather. No investigation of the accusations. No effort to verify anything. Child found unconscious with early-stage hypothermia. Father's evidence unreviewed by any neutral party. By 12:30 a.m. I had a new home. Temporary emergency guardianship granted to Dorothy Reeves. Effective immediately. My father was barred from contacting me until the investigation was complete. CPS would interview everyone, me, Karen, my father, Jolene, and take a close look at the supposed proof. As we left the hospital, my father tried one more time. He reached toward me, started to say something. Dorothy stepped between us without breaking stride. "You don't get to touch her," she said. "You don't get to talk to her. You had your chance to be her father and you threw it away. Literally. Into a storm. We're leaving." She ushered me to her ancient Buick, the same car she'd driven since before I was born. She helped me into the passenger seat, tucked another blanket around me even though the heater was blasting. "Grandma," I whispered, tears spilling over. "I don't even have clean clothes. I don't have anything." She patted my hand, eyes fierce and tender all at once. "Honey, you've got me. And I've got a Target card. Tomorrow we shop. Tonight you eat soup and sleep in a bed where no one is ever going to throw you out." That was the first night of my new life. Dorothy's house had 3 rules. Breakfast at 8, homework before TV, and absolutely no nonsense before her second cup of coffee. It wasn't big or fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. A kitchen that always smelled like coffee and cinnamon. It was warm. It was safe. For the first time in years I could exhale. But the story was nowhere near finished. 2 weeks later, Maria Santos called my grandmother. "Mrs. Reeves," she said, "you might want to sit down. We've been going over the evidence Mr. Walls provided. The timeline doesn't fit. And we've found security footage that tells a very different story." Karen's flawless plan was about to split at the seams. Maria Santos wasn't a box checker. She was a detective in a cardigan. She didn't just look at evidence. She followed it. Every receipt, every timestamp, every trail of money. The more she tugged, the more Karen's story unraveled. Started with the cash. They'd found $800 in my dresser. My father claimed it proved I'd been skimming from him for months. Case closed. Except Maria pulled the bank records. That $800 wasn't from months of theft. It was one ATM withdrawal on October 14th, the same day I was kicked out. The bank produced the camera footage. Timestamp: 2:47 p.m. Location: First National Bank. The person on screen wasn't me. It was Karen. Same jacket she'd worn that morning. Same ponytail. Same white sedan in the background, with a dent from where she'd backed into a mailbox that summer. As for me, at 2:47 p.m., I was in 5th period chemistry learning about molecular bonds. The school's attendance system logged me present until 3:15. My teacher remembered me asking about covalent electrons. I physically could not have been at that ATM. Karen thought she was clever. But if you want to play criminal mastermind, you actually have to be smart. She used our father's ATM card, forgetting that banks use cameras. She made the withdrawal in broad daylight without checking whether I was in a classroom 12 miles away, surrounded by 30 witnesses and a digital roll call. She bought the burner phone at a convenience store 2 blocks from her gym, on camera, in her yoga pants, with her car clearly visible in the parking lot. Some masterminds wear capes. Karen wore Lululemon, and got nailed because she couldn't drive 10 extra minutes. Then the pills. The bottles in my closet trace back to a prescription for one Trent Barlow. Anxiety meds, filled at the Oak Street pharmacy. Maria called the pharmacy and the local police. Trent had filed a theft report claiming someone broke into his car and stole those pills. Date of the report: October 17th, 3 days after I was kicked out. If those bottles were already in my closet on the 14th, why report them stolen on the 17th? Answer: because they weren't stolen. Karen used Trent's leftovers to frame me, and he filed the report afterward so he could look responsible and get a refill. That lagging theft report might as well have been a neon sign. We planned this. If this is feeling uncomfortably familiar, keep listening because what came next was worth every second of the fight. And if you're rooting for me, consider it your cue to tap that like button. It matters more than you think. Back to the fuse burning down. The real smoking gun was the burner phone. The fake drug dealer texts all came from a prepaid phone bought on October 10th. Maria tracked the purchase back to that same convenience store. Security footage showed a young woman with brown hair and a ponytail, athletic build, paying cash. Through the front window, a white sedan with a dented bumper. Same car. Same woman. Same trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to my sister. As Maria dug deeper, uglier truths surfaced. She started reviewing my father's bank records, Specifically, checks written over the previous 2 years. Someone had been forging them. Small amounts at first, $50 here, $100 there. The handwriting looked close to my father's, but not quite. The checks funneled into accounts linked to Trent and his various businesses. By the end, the total was just under $18,000. Karen hadn't only framed me. She'd been bleeding my father dry for years and needed a scapegoat before anyone noticed. Dorothy wasn't going to leave that unchallenged. She hired an old family friend, attorney Leonard Vance. He'd practiced family law for 3 decades and had known my mother since grade school. When Dorothy laid out the facts, his expression went hard and cold. He filed for permanent guardianship right away. He also filed a civil suit against Karen for fraud, emotional distress, and anything else that would stick. He locked my trust fund behind extra safeguards so nobody, even family, could touch it before I turned 18. That year taught me something I still live by. Keep records of everything. Receipts, emails, messages, promises. My grandmother kept a folder for every important document. Bills, letters, tax returns, warranties. She called it her paper insurance. After all this, I bought my first filing cabinet at 16. I still have it. Some habits are a kind of armor. Life with Grandma Dorothy was like relearning how to breathe after years underwater. Her house was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, worn but welcoming furniture. Warmth seeping out of every corner. She enrolled me in a new school where no one knew my supposed reputation. I made real friends for the first time, people who liked me for who I was, not for the role Karen had cast me in. I started therapy, finally untangling years of quiet manipulation I hadn't even recognized as abuse. Dorothy didn't have many rules, but she was militant about one. Dinner at 6. Chaos can wait until after the meatloaf, she said. Still the best life advice I've ever been given. Meanwhile, my father's world was disintegrating. The CPS investigation turned his household inside out. He sat through multiple interviews, each one leaving him older, more wrung out. How had he missed so much? How had he been so blind? Jolene started sleeping in the guest room. Their conversations became sharp, clipped, full of unsaid accusations. Karen was livid. Not remorseful, never remorseful, just furious her plan had collapsed. Everyone else was to blame. The biased CPS worker, the misleading bank footage, the confused pharmacy records. Her crown as the golden child was slipping. She couldn't stand it. Leonard spent months hammering together an ironclad case. Bank statements, ATM video, pharmacy records, phone purchase receipts. He gathered witness statements from Gloria, my teachers, neighbors who'd noticed Karen's car at strange hours. Even a few of Karen's old friends came forward. Turns out she'd left a trail of scorched earth behind her. Lies, manipulation, petty cruelty. People were eager to talk. The court date was set for March 2012. But a month before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Federal marshals arrested Trent Barlow in Nevada. He'd been running the same investment scam in 3 states, stripping more than $400,000 from people who trusted him. He was looking at serious federal time, possibly 15 years. The day after his arrest, his lawyer made a call. Trent was ready to cooperate, to cut a deal, to tell the truth about everything, including his girlfriend Karen and what she'd done to her little sister. Trent was a con artist and a liar, but loyal he was not. The second prosecutors dangled a reduced sentence. He gave them a 12-page written confession. He confirmed everything. The plan to frame me had been Karen's idea from the start. She'd been siphoning money from my father for nearly 2 years, channeling it to Trent's schemes. When she realized the missing funds were getting harder to hide, she decided she needed someone to blame. That someone was me. The troubled younger sister. The one who never quite fit. The one she was certain no one would believe. Trent's statement detailed the planning sessions, the pill bottles he supplied, the burner phone Karen bought. The morning she planted everything in my room. He attached texts between them from the days leading up to October 14th. This wasn't impulsive. It was meticulous and cold. His last line stuck with me. Karen said her sister was a nobody who wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. March 2012. Family court. I'd been living with Grandma for 5 months. I'd gained weight in the good way, food and sleep and safety. I'd made honor roll at my new school. I'd started remembering what it felt like to be an ordinary teenager. Walking into that courtroom, I felt 15 again. Small. Scared. Unsure if anyone would believe me even now. Dorothy squeezed my hand. Leonard gave me a steady nod. Gloria sat in the gallery wearing the same glasses and the same no-nonsense expression she'd had the night she found me. The hearing was technically about guardianship, making Dorothy's custody permanent, setting support obligations. But with Trent's confession and Maria's mountain of evidence, the district attorney had stepped in. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. There were criminal charges in the air. Karen sat across the aisle with a public defender she'd met that morning. She looked smaller than I remembered. Paler. The confident golden child who'd ruled our house, now just a frightened young woman whose lies had come due. My father sat alone in the back. Jolene had refused to come. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 months. The evidence came out calmly, ruthlessly. ATM footage of Karen withdrawing $800 at 2:47 p.m. on October 14th. My school attendance showing I was present in chemistry class at that exact time. Pharmacy records proving Trent filed his theft report 3 days after the pills were already in my closet. Security footage of Karen buying the burner phone. 2 years of forged checks totaling $18,000. Then Trent's confession. Read aloud line by brutal line. When Karen took the stand, she tried to cling to her story. Confusion, hurt, worry. She loved her sister. She was only trying to help. The prosecutor slid a photo of the ATM screen onto the display. "Ms. Walls," she said, "is this you at the First National ATM on October 14th at 2:47 p.m.? Karen swallowed. Looked at herself in the picture. I was getting money for groceries." "Groceries?" the prosecutor echoed. $800 in cash. "And you forgot to mention this withdrawal to your father when you accused your sister of stealing that exact amount later that day." Silence. "This ATM is 12 miles from your sister's school," the prosecutor continued. "Attendance records show she was in class until 3:15 p.m. Can you explain how she made this withdrawal while sitting in chemistry?" More silence. Her lawyer objected, but there was nothing to object to. Facts don't care what you feel. Then they called Jolene. My stepmother looked like she'd rather dissolve into the floor. She'd spent years perfecting neutrality. But on the stand, under oath, neutrality wasn't an option. The prosecutor asked about the morning of October 14th. "Did you see anything unusual?" Jolene's voice barely cleared a whisper. "Karen went into Sherry's room around 7 a.m. She said she was borrowing a hair tie. Did you see her come out with a hair tie?" "No. She came out empty-handed." "Anything else in the days before the incident?" Jolene closed her eyes, bracing herself. 2 days before, I heard Karen on the phone with Trent. She said, "Everything is in place." And then she laughed. The room went so quiet you could hear the judge breathe. When my father took the stand, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He had to admit he'd thrown his 15-year-old daughter out into a storm without checking the bank records, without asking why evidence had suddenly appeared, without even hearing my side. I trusted her," he said, voice cracking. "She's my firstborn. She was always the responsible one. I thought." He couldn't finish. Judge Patricia Morrison had seen 3 decades of custody wars, ugly divorces, and families grinding themselves to pieces over money and pride. But she still looked shaken. "Mr. Walls," she said, voice like steel, "trust is not a defense for negligence. You expelled a minor child into dangerous conditions based on unverified accusations. You made no effort to investigate. You chose one daughter's word over the others without evidence, reasoning, or basic parental judgment. That is not parenting. That is abandonment." My father sat there ashen. She turned to Karen. "Your older daughter, meanwhile, engaged in a calculated scheme to destroy her sister's life. She stole from you, lied to you, and used you as a weapon. And you allowed it because it was easier to believe the daughter who made you feel admired than to actually parent the daughter who needed you." When sentencing came, Karen took a plea to avoid a full trial. Fraud, theft, filing false reports, child endangerment, 2-year suspended sentence, no prison unless she violated probation. 5 years supervised probation. 200 hours of community service. Full restitution. The $18,000 stolen from my father, and the $800 she'd planted to frame me. A permanent restraining order. No direct or indirect contact with me. No coming within 500 feet. And a felony record. No finance jobs. No positions involving money or trust. No working with kids or vulnerable adults. The golden child walked out with a scarlet letter that would follow her for life. My father lost his guardianship rights permanently. He was ordered to pay for my therapy and educational expenses until I turned 21 and to establish a college fund with part of the restitution. Small towns talk. Within weeks, everyone knew what he'd done. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors looked away. His church group's calendar suddenly filled whenever he tried to attend. 6 weeks later, Jolene filed for divorce. She'd been complicit in her silence. She knew it. She couldn't stand to see him and remember. At the end, Judge Morrison looked at me. "Ms. Walls," she said. "You've shown remarkable resilience in the face of extraordinary cruelty. The court grants full, permanent custody to your grandmother, Dorothy Reeves. Your trust fund remains protected until you reach 18. I sincerely hope your future is kinder than your past." I wanted to make a joke. Something like, "Your Honor, you should see me parallel park. That's the real test of character." But some jokes are just for you. And the moment was too big for humor. So I just said, "Thank you." As we left the courthouse, my father made one last attempt. "Sweetheart," he started. "I'm so..." Dorothy stepped between us again without even looking at him. "You don't get to call her that anymore," she said, voice glacial. "You forfeited that privilege when you put her on a porch in a storm." We kept walking. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was bright and warm. March can go either way where we lived. That day chose spring. I had a grandmother who'd gone to war for me. A lawyer who'd fought like I was his own. A caseworker and a retired CPS supervisor who'd believed me when no one else had. And for the first time, I had a future. But some stories don't end in a courtroom. They circle back years later. 13 years passed. October 2024. I'm 28 now. And my life is unrecognizable compared to that 15-year-old trudging through a storm with a school backpack and soaked sneakers. I live in Boston, in a beautiful apartment overlooking the harbor, with morning light that pours through windows I chose for myself. I'm a marketing director at a tech company. Good pay. Good benefits. Good people. I started as an intern and climbed rung by rung. Every promotion felt like another step away from the girl my family tried to write me as. I'm engaged. His name is Colin. He's a pediatric nurse, which tells you almost everything you need to know. We met at a charity event 2 years ago. I was there for work. He was there because he cared. He spilled red wine on my dress, apologized for 10 solid minutes, then made me laugh so hard I couldn't stay annoyed. We're getting married in the spring. Life is good. Simple, solid, breathtakingly good. Then the letter came. It went to Dorothy's address. She still lives in the same house, still sharp as a tack at 80, still enforcing her 3 rules. Breakfast at 8, work before TV, no nonsense before coffee. She called and said something had arrived that I needed to see. Her voice was careful and neutral, the tone she uses when she refuses to sway my choices. I drove down that weekend. The envelope was plain white, the paper cheap. The handwriting shook so badly I barely recognized it. The return address: Maple Grove Care Center, a nursing home an hour from where I grew up. I opened it at Dorothy's kitchen table, my coffee going cold. "Dear Sherry, I know I don't deserve to ask anything from you. I know you have every reason to throw this letter away. But I am asking anyway because I do not have much time left, and I need to say this before I go. I am at Maple Grove now. I had a stroke 2 years ago. My left side is weak. Jolene is long gone. She took half of everything and moved to Florida with an accountant she met online. The house is sold. There is nothing left of the life I thought I had. Karen came to see me last week. I would not let her in my room. I cannot look at her. I cannot hear her voice without remembering what I did because of her lies. You are the only one I want to see. The only one I need to apologize to. I was your father, and I failed you in the worst way a parent can fail a child. I believed lies instead of truth. I chose comfort over justice. I threw you away like you were nothing. You owe me nothing. But if you can find it in your heart to come, just once, I would like to tell you I am sorry in person before it is too late. Your father, Raymond. I sat there a long time. The coffee cooled. The afternoon light slid across the table. Dorothy said nothing. Just waited like she always had, letting me steer my own life. 13 years without a word. 13 years building a life that didn't include him. Did I owe him anything? No. But I thought about my mother. About the kind of person she'd raised me to be before she died. About ending cycles instead of extending them. I decided to go. Not for him. For me. The nursing home looked like every other nursing home. Fluorescent lighting, industrial tile, disinfectant trying and failing to erase the smell of endings. My father's room was small. Single bed. One window. A TV playing some show no one was watching. He looked 20 years older than his 73 years. The stroke had hollowed him out. He seemed shrunken and gray in a way I'd never seen. He cried when I walked in. Couldn't speak for several minutes, just sat there sobbing while I stayed by the door, wondering if this had been a mistake. Eventually the words came, hitching and broken. He apologized over and over, looping through the same phrases where the stroke had frayed his speech. He said he'd been blind, stupid, cruel. Said throwing me out was the worst thing he'd ever done. Said he thought about that October night every day. Every night. Every time it rained. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt. I didn't rush over and comfort him either. When he finally ran out of words, I said what I'd come to say. I forgive you. His face crumpled with relief. But I need you to understand what that means. I pulled a chair closer and sat where he had to meet my eyes. Forgiveness doesn't mean I forget, I said. It means I'm choosing not to carry this anger anymore. It's heavy, and I'm done giving it space in my body. You threw me into a storm because you believed a lie. Not because the evidence was convincing, but because it was easy. Karen made you feel good about yourself. I reminded you of everything you'd lost. You chose the comforting story over your own child. I built my whole life without you. I put myself through college. I built a career. I'm marrying a man who wouldn't throw me out in a drizzle. Never mind a hurricane. I'm happy, but you have to live with what you did. That's not mine to carry. It's yours. He nodded, tears running. I know, he managed. I know. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. I needed to see you one last time. I stayed about 20 more minutes. We didn't say much. There wasn't much left. I told him about my job, my apartment, about Colin. Surface details. Safe ones. He listened like it was the most important story he'd ever heard. When I stood to leave, he reached out with his good hand. Not grabbing, just reaching. I let his fingers brush mine. Then I walked out. In the hall, a nurse stopped me. You're his daughter, right? The younger one. I nodded. She glanced toward his door, then back at me. Your sister came by last week. He refused to see her. Told us to send her away. I went very still. He wouldn't see her? She shook her head. Said he could only handle apologizing to one daughter, and it wasn't her. Got pretty upset about it. Said he couldn't look at her without seeing what she'd done. I didn't know what to say. After years of being the throwaway kid, the one who wasn't good enough, the one he'd sacrificed without a second thought, my father had finally rejected Karen, the golden child, the one he always believed. Too late to fix anything. But something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness. I'd already given that. More like closure. Like the last page of a long, heavy book finally turning. I stepped out of the nursing home into October sunshine. Same month. Different weather. Different life. 13 years ago, October meant rain and betrayal and a night on Route 9. Now October means falling leaves, pumpkin spice, everything. Yes, I am that basic. And the anniversary of the night my real life began. Some storms don't ruin you. They turn you. That October, I lost a house but found my home. I lost a father who didn't deserve me and found a grandmother who did. I lost a sister who'd never loved me and found myself. When I got back to Boston, Colin was waiting. Takeout on the counter. A terrible movie queued up. That patient, open look he has when he knows I need space more than words. How'd it go? He asked. I dropped my keys, stepped into his arms, and let my forehead rest on his chest. I think I'm finally done, I said. I think I can let it go now. He wrapped me up and didn't ask another question. That's one of 1,000 reasons I'm marrying him. Next spring, we're getting married in Grandma Dorothy's backyard. Small ceremony, close friends, good food. Dorothy is already planning the menu. Meatloaf is absolutely on it. Somewhere out there, Karen is working night shifts, wondering where it all went wrong. My father is in a nursing home, alone with his regrets. Jolene is in Florida, pretending we never existed. And me? I'm in Boston. I have a career I earned, partner who loves me, a grandmother who will probably outlive us all out of sheer stubbornness. And yes, I finally got that band poster. The one I'd wanted to buy with my birthday money, the week before everything fell apart. I tracked down the same design online a few years ago. Paid too much. Framed it properly. It hangs in my office where I can see it every day. Some things are worth waiting for. Thanks for watching my story. More of my most gripping ones are already waiting on your screen. Click one now so you don't miss the best parts. You're going to love them. See you in the next story.